Good morning. It's Mike from Mike's Custom Saws. Saturday morning, finally being able to get back on the 024 Wood Boss, nicknamed Scrappy. It's going to look like junk on the outside, but it's going to have a lot of good internals done on it. So today I wanted to get, I'm ready to put the top end together. I want to go over the cylinder, show you the port work that was done on it, show you the piston, the work that was done on the piston, and then we'll walk through going, putting it down onto the crankcase and go from there. So also I want to go over the book, because after my port work I did adjust some numbers as I was grinding. Originally I think I was going to go to like 6 degrees on the intake, and I dropped that back down to 4. So I was a little bit concerned with going too far with it. And then I got something else here. I'm going to bring it into frame. I've been working on this for my buddy. He's my neighbor. This is one of these Echo 2511 top handles. It's a tree saw. This one is completely bone stock. He said it wasn't running right. I mean, this has only got maybe a half dozen runs of fuel through it. I mean, it looks brand new. So what I found the problem to be was inside the carburetor, and it was basically bad fuel. He was running bad fuel, and then he was letting it sit. So I recommended going to the ethanol-free premix. I use Stihl Motor Mix. That's what I recommended to him. For the amount of times that he uses this, he's like, I'll just change to that. He had a bunch of in the carburetor. The screen was filled with all kinds of kind of like white slimy substance. Typical of using ethanol or some water possibly in there, and then breaking down the plastics of the fuel lines. Luckily we caught it before you need to replace fuel lines. Subsequently, I talked to him and I said, hey, do you want to do a muffler on this thing? So I ordered a muffler up from Gordy's. He said yes, that he wanted to do it. And so from West Coast Saw, we're going to do a West Coast Saw muffler mod on it, pull the limiter caps off the carb, and be able to tune this thing up quite a bit. I also realized how awesome these little saws are. So coming in the future, I'm going to get myself one of these saws and do the full-on Mike's Custom Saw port work on it with Gordy's muffler mod. I may do a timing advance on it, we'll see. And then I'm pretty sure I'm going to do the Panther bar and change to the 1/4 inch on the chain. So I've been looking up August Haneke with Monkey Beaver. He's got some pretty good kits that you can get switching over to the Panther with 1/4 pitch chain. It includes your clutch sprocket, the bar, and I think comes with 2 chains. I could buy the 1/4 clutch and do a steel bar with it and a steel chain, and there's benefits to that because I've got steel shop buddies right here. But I've been really wanting to try the Panther bars. I've watched a lot of August stuff, and for tree work they seem like they work really well, and I just want to try them. So anyways, this is a pretty cool little saw, super lightweight. I mean, it's the lightest top handle out there, and there's a lot of potential on these things. So this one I'm just going to be doing the muffler mod. I might just do a video on that. I mean, it's a pretty easy. Swap one out for Gordy's, put that on there, and then you got to pull the limiter caps on the carburetor and readjust the carburetor for it. But my neighbor, he's going to keep it as a 3/8 stock 14 inch, but he'll just get a little bit more power on it. He doesn't use it a bunch. It's just kind of, you know, if he's got some fallen branches from storms and whatnot, that's what he does. He just goes out and cuts with it. So anyways, that's on the bench. Pretty fun. I will be getting one of these. It will be fun. Alright, that's pretty cool little saw. So, alright, back to the 024 Wood Boss Scrappy. I'm going to move the camera around, show you the port work on the cylinder, show you the piston, and then the exhaust also. And then we'll start. I'll talk about what I use to seal the cylinder and go through with putting the jug back on. Alright, so here's our cylinder completed now. I want to go over some numbers for you real quick. I've got my book here just so it kind of gives reference to what you're looking at. The end porting I said I wanted to go to 98 degrees on the exhaust after top dead center. Gave us a duration of 164 degrees, which gives us 4 degrees of exhaust timing. Originally on the intake I was going to go to 72. I backed that down to 70 degrees, which gives us 4 degrees also on the intake with a duration of 140 degrees. I cleaned up the uppers, did very little work on the uppers. I usually don't do any work on the uppers. I have a 90 degree Fordham piece and I wanted to kind of try it out a little bit. Tried to angle the uppers a little bit, you know, towards the intake. Didn't do a bunch in there though. And then the lowers, I opened those up and you'll see that on here. So let's just take a look at the piston first and we'll see if I can get this in here. I'm gonna try to shine a light in here so you can see it. It might be a bit better. So I opened up the windows, kind of kidney shaped them. Both sides, try to keep them as even as possible. And then I took basically all the casting marks off on the inside. Just trying to lighten that thing up. Most of the work on the piston was on those windows. I also took and polished the whole piston up. You can see that dome is nice and polished up. Now I put the rings on here. These are new rings. So it's old piston, new rings. And before I put the rings on, I always put some 2-stroke oil down inside. Let me get rid of that light there. I always put some 2-stroke oil down inside the ring grooves before putting the new rings on. Just a little pre-lubrication, and then before putting this jug on, I will kind of coat this whole piston with 2-stroke oil, and then coat the inside of the jug with 2-stroke oil also. So piston work is done. I didn't take some before and after scale weights on it. I don't have a gram scale, so maybe something for the future. But it's something I always do. It creates, you know, you get that good flow in there through the windows, get that air fuel mix and some more lubrication up in there. So a little bit of the piston work should be fine. This piston is in great shape. I also beveled all my edges, made sure that everything was very smooth around the piston. So it's a little bit oily still because of the 2-stroke oil I put in before putting those new rings in. Now this is the used jug. And then we'll come in here first, show the exhaust work. If you see that, I'll tip it up. I mean, she's just shining clean, polished. And then, so the intake, did quite a bit of work on the intake on that lower side, and then roughed it up with some I usually go with like 80 grit sandpaper when I'm done with the intake. And then we'll look at some transfer work. So it's kind of challenging with the camera here, looking through the camera while trying to show you. Let's see here. Oh, there we go. Let's see. There we go. So there's some of the transfer work on the lowers, and then I try to make the other one equal. So basically what I did was I took out this area in here that shows. Yeah, it's kind of difficult to show, but I took out basically like right in here on the lower portion of transfers, ramped that up, opened it up a bit. And then I did I don't know if that'll pick that up, the hone work in there. So exhaust, the intake, and then I did the transfer work in here, and then lowered that intake, and then I always rough up those intakes with the 80 grit, and then transfers I do the same thing. The uppers I did very little on. I mean, it's not even worth showing. It's just a little bit of kind of just making sure the flow is good and it's going where it needs to go. On the exhaust, this is the completed exhaust. Now this thing was just a stock exhaust, so come together like that. Use Gordy's West Coast saw. Let me put that jug over there. West Coast saw, universal port. You gotta do a little manipulation on those and bend them out and everything, but it came out pretty sweet. There's the opening here that I cut in. Took all the, let me get the light on here again. I took all the baffling out. So these exhaust stock, it's got a plate right here that's solid, and everything has come out of these little holes in here. I took all that baffling out of there, the plate out here, so that it's a free flowing out. I don't like to take this whole piece out because I do think that is good for diffusion of the exhaust, a little back pressure, and also quiets her down a bit. And then on the cover, there was a plate that goes all the way around here with just some small holes coming in here. So, trying to get that thing to focus again. There you go. Anyways, the exhaust would have to come in here, go through these little holes, and then out the stock. So I kept the stock screen on, spark arrestor, and then Gordy's kit comes with a spark arrestor in there also. So much more free flowing. And then last thing I did with the exhaust is everything is, I don't know if you can see that a little bit, but along the edge of the exhaust everything is port matched. So here's the gasket right here, and that's port matched to the cylinder, and then the actual muffler is port matched to the cylinder also. So I did also do 2 shorts on YouTube for, well, actually 3 shorts. I did piston work, and then I believe the jug one actually came out pretty good, where you can actually see a lot better. So refer to those and you can see actually how it looks on the jug. It's kind of harder with this camera to do that, to show it. And then I did one on the exhaust work too. The other thing I did with this exhaust was, it's the first time I've ever done it. My wife is probably going to kill me on it, but I painted it with high heat. First I heated up the entire exhaust before putting Gordy's piece on here. That was already done. I just took it off and installed it later, but I heated the entire exhaust up, sprayed it with high temp black paint, and then I took it and baked it in our kitchen oven, which I shouldn't be saying that, but I did. I baked it at 400, 450 I think it was, for like an hour to bake all that paint on there. So it is like it's baked on, so it should be good for a long time. And then I came in and reassembled, and then I did my port matching on the exhaust. So those are those pieces. There's the jug right there, and get back to the actual saw and get going on it. Okay, off camera I just want to kind of explain a little bit of what I did. Did a bunch here. I first off cleaned off the cylinder completely on the bottom with brake clean. I also oiled inside the cylinder, just some 2-stroke oil, and then I put my intake on the cylinder, all in ready in preparation to put on here. I'm going to pull the camera down a bit here, and I got my piston on. I put the obviously the wrist pin in there, and then the clip in there. I do use a Stihl tool to get that wrist pin clip in. Makes it a lot easier. If you guys want to know about that, or if you want me to show you any of this stuff, let me know. I'm just trying to kind of cut a lot of the prep stuff out, basically. This is the what I use, it's a Loctite 518. I haven't had a problem with this stuff as long as surfaces are perfectly clean. So Loctite 518, that's what I use as a base gasket replacement. If your surfaces are clean, it works really, really well. So got just a little piston ring compressor on there. So I'll squeeze that as I put that jug on there and then put it down and try to get that intake to snake through at the same time. And all this has to happen while I'm pulling out the ring compressor before I touch that Loctite 518. So it's kind of challenging, but let me pull the camera down here real quick and I'll show you the Loctite down there and everything. Okay, there's a better view now. There's the Loctite. That's an anaerobic compound, so anything that, I like using it because anything that is absence of oxygen, that's where it hardens. So if you get it in the crankcase a little bit, squeezes out in there, it just blows through. It's not going to harden. So it only hardens underneath where the mating surfaces are. So there's my ring compressor set. I've got the rings set so that they're in the pins, or the pins are between the rings, so it'll compress up. And then I'll be taking that jug and putting that down on there, and I've got my bolts already preloaded into the jug. And I've cleaned this surface on the crankcase immaculately with brake clean so that it's very, very clean and pure when that Loctite goes on it. So the nice part about this stuff is I could leave this thing all night and it's not going to harden. You got plenty of time to work with it. Off camera also, I pre-lubed the lower connecting rod bearing there, and then before I put the wrist pin in, I pre-lubed that, and then I took the wrist pin bearing out and pre-lubed that, and then I put everything together. So let's get on it and get this thing on so that it can sit. This stuff takes 24 hours to cure, so tomorrow afternoon, I guess it would be now, it's about midday now. Tomorrow afternoon I can start assembling the saw. My goal is to have the saw being broken in either tomorrow night or the next day. Okay, so I'm hoping I'm going to stay out of the way here. It is kind of, I get giddy during this portion of it. It's super fun but super stressful. I love putting these jugs on, and actually, I mean, this is the beginning of the end for putting these saws together. So I'll try to stay out of the way, but I do need to get in there and actually see what I'm going to be doing. So hopefully that will be, you know, you'll be able to see something on it. So anyways, there's the jug. She's all ready to go. Last time we're going to see her while she's off the saw. And then just going to hold that compressor in, and I'm going to push this down until those rings get up in there. And I can take the compressor out and work that intake in, and then start my jug bolts once it's seated down. So let's go. It's always a nervous portion for me. Alright, here I'm just trying to get that jug down on there while holding those rings together. And you want those rings to there we go, okay. Now I touched my Loctite a little bit there, so I'm just going to take my finger, kind of smooth that out. I really want that stuff to be in there good. And here's another little thing that I'm learning on this particular jug, is that I got to remove some jug bolts to get the ring compressor out. So I'm going to have to put those back in, and I just want to make sure I've got, yeah, it's on there now. So the rings are compressed in there. You can do this without a ring compressor, but these things are so easy to get off of Amazon that it's worth it just to get them. believe it or not, it makes it a lot easier. Now I'm just trying to move it down off the cylinder without touching any of that Loctite. Gotta kind of turn it. There we go. It's coming around. Okay, there's the ring compressor. So, she's off. And I'm just gonna take the light and look that I did not touch that Loctite anymore, because I want a nice, smooth piece on there. Right where I had touched it, I'm just gonna take my finger and just smooth that out a little bit more. That's key. You don't need a lot of that stuff, but it needs to be a nice thin layer. We take my other bolts that I took out, put them back in. Alright, so that cylinder, see, now she wants to slide down there. Now I'm going to take this intake, and I've got to get that intake through there. That is going to be the most challenging part of this entire build here. I got to get that intake through the chassis of the saw. This would be a lot easier if I didn't have the tank on here and it was just the crankcase, but I really wanted to try it without taking the tank off. And see, this is, I think, the first saw I've done just with doing a base gasket delete and not taking the tank off. And I'm still being careful not to touch that Loctite. I may have to move this around a bit. To get that intake in there. I'm trying to also keep it in the camera. So you gotta keep that cylinder above that Loctite. I don't want it to touch. Alright, this is becoming a kind of a pain in the butt. I'm going to turn the camera off, I'm going to work on this thing, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, I got that intake through the inside. I'll show this all to you later. That was challenging. It only took me another 2 minutes or so, but didn't want to waste the time on the camera of me fiddling around with it and everything. So she's ready to go down now. I've got her set, ready to go down. So now I've got my headlight on. I'm going to put my glasses on. I want to make sure that this thing goes down perfectly straight on that Loctite. It doesn't move around or anything like that. It's just sitting there in position right now. So, guess I learned a little bit here. Like this channel, that's kind of, you know, this is a different saw for me, so I haven't done one of these other than the Super, but I had the Super tank completely off of it. Much easier to place these things in when you don't have to get that intake through the tank housing. So, learned a little bit, you know, do the extra work in the beginning, take the tank housing off, and then much easier to go back together. That's if we were like the style that I'm doing right now, because I don't have the ability to spin the jugs and take deck height off of it. If you could do that and you just use your stock base gasket, no problem at all, because you're not worried about smearing the sealant. Then it'd be a lot easier. I don't have that ability yet. I'm trying to work on it, get a piece made for the lathe, the mandrel, but in time. So anyways, we're here. Maybe I'll just take the camera off there real quick and show you exactly where I'm at with it right now. Let's see here. All right, what am I looking at? Okay, here we go. And I'll get a light on there. Trying to see if she's gonna focus. Okay, there you go. So that's where it's sitting right now, ready to go. I'm gonna put the camera back up and then we'll put this thing down and run it home. Okay, I'm gonna turn my headlight on. Hopefully that doesn't affect that camera too much, but I need to be able to see. Grab my hat out of here, put my glasses back on, and I really wanna be able to see this thing, so I'll probably get in the way a little bit here, but I need to be able to watch it. There we go. Down. She's in. So now, just take my Torx 27 and get, oh, that's perfect, right down, and do my cross pattern here. There you go, you see it. So I'm just going to cross hatch these. Go diagonal and just kind of snugging them all up, making sure they're all going down properly. Alright, I just wanted to come back here. I got the jug torqued down now and do a little bit of close-up work if I can here. Let me find a light. I'm over on the other bench, of course, and I can show you what I was fighting with here. So there's the intake. I needed to get that intake lip through the tank housing. Much easier when you take your tank housings off and just have the crankcase there. Next time I will probably do that on most saws I do this on again. This is the first one I've done this way, and it's a lot more challenging. It's possible though. I mean, it took me, you know, just another minute or two off camera to do it. I got a fuel line replaced already. I've got the impulse line replaced already. So that's all new. Let's see if we can get a little bit of a close-up. You can see that Loctite 518 in there. Kind of squeezing out around the base. That's no problem at all. I could actually wipe that up if I want to. Sometimes I do if it's excessive. It doesn't look too bad right now. There's my exhaust, and I rotated the piston multiple times in there, made sure the rings were free and clear. They are good. So I'll just leave this thing set for the next 24 hours and come back to it. So there's my flywheel. The other thing I will do is I'm going to put my degree wheel back on there and do some timing numbers once again when it's done. So let me set the camera back up on the tripod. We'll talk about this a little bit, and then that'll be it for today. Okay, so that's going to do it for the 024 Wood Boss Scrappy today. Hope that helps somebody out. If you guys want to see more or just ask questions about what I did off camera, a lot of that stuff I cut out because it just makes the video super long if you're sitting there watching me put wrist pin in, and or if you have questions of the tools that I use to get that in, because I didn't know in the beginning what, you know, I mean, I've gotten a lot of the Stihl tools, makes it a lot easier, especially for getting those little wrist pin clips in. Hope I explained everything as best as I could and it made sense of the process of putting the top end on. It's not hard, it's just mainly keeping everything clean. This one was a little bit more difficult because I kept the tank housing on it, and so I had to thread that. I had to put the intake on the jug, and then I had to thread that through without touching that Loctite 518 on there. So that's really critical to keep that nice smooth surface on there. So next step, which I'll probably do either later tonight or tomorrow morning, is I'm going to put my degree wheel back onto the crank, and I will get some final numbers per se, and I'll write them down in my book because I write everything down in the book. It's all data for moving on to the next saws. I'll get a squish measurement, and then I'll recheck my exhaust and my intake timing to make sure that if anything changed with that Loctite. I mean, I'm sure it from my experience from past, it puts 1,000th or 2 on the squish, because you are creating a seal there. You're creating a little bit of a gap between your crankcase and your jug. So it's always good to do that. Sometimes I forget to do it, but this one I've been just kind of taking my time on it and going slow through it. So I'll do that, write the stuff down in the book, and then next time I come up on the channel, I should have this thing together. I'm hoping. I mean, now once the stuff sets up, I'll put that exhaust on that I did, get that on there, and then it's just reassembly of the saw, which is pretty basic for, you know, if you take a saw apart. I always, even on this one, I've taken a lot of saws apart of all different types, but I'm not a steel tech by trade. It's not what I do every day, so I take pictures all the time when I'm taking it, no matter how dirty. I mean, this saw was super dirty, and I always take pictures of when I'm taking it apart. So I'll refer back to those pictures and get it back together. But if everything goes well with this saw, it should be really good. I mean, it's solid. It's gonna look awful on the outside, but everything, I mean, down to crank seals, we did crank seals on it. I mean, crank seals are done all the way up through. It's got good parts in it. I mean, I reused the jug, I reused the piston, but they were in fine shape. Put new rings in it. So everything on the insides is going to be good. I'm putting a brand new carburetor on it. New air cleaner, of course. New fuel filter, of course. So hopefully she's going to be a little ripper. My one question mark is the timing. I was going back and forth with that. I've only done one saw with a timing advance. That was the 200T. I'm not a really big timing advance guy on the ignition timing. I'd rather just make my gains in the port timing, and I don't go extreme. I want the saw to be able to be used and used for a long time. So this one I kind of went further with the ignition timing. I hope that doesn't bite me, but that's why you keep a book. That's why you keep notes, and you can say, nope, I shouldn't have done that. But that is a nice thing that I can go back with it if I want. I can always get another key and put a stock key in there and go right back to stock. So it's something that if it didn't do well or if it was a mistake, it's something I can reverse. Port timing, you can't reverse. I mean, yeah, you technically can, I suppose. You can fill your ports with epoxy or JB weld and grind them down. But I'm not planning on doing that. So I like to not go as extreme. That's why I backed that 6 degrees off on the intake timing. I probably could have gone more. It came out to 140 degrees, but I was kind of comparing with the Super, but the Super has a longer stroke. So I was taking that into account, and then I figured, you know what, I'm gonna stop at 140 degrees of duration on the intake, which, let me look at my book here real quick, came out to 70 degrees. So I'll be back. Hopefully next time I get back here, it will be in a couple days, and this thing will be running, and get through the break-in process and put it to the wood. So thanks for watching. Really appreciate it, and you guys all have a great day today.